Okay, good morning. If we could all rise and sing, We Shall Overcome.
Good morning. Welcome everyone to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where we join together to create a nourishing, liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world, or as we say in short, to create community, find meaning, and live justly. What would you guys say? I know it's been kind of fun to do this, but what if we just add and live justly, create community, find meaning, live justly, and work for justice? No? That sounds like too much? Just 3 bullet points? Huh? Okay, well, to be discussed. Anyway, whatever we say, welcome to everyone. Those of you who are joining us in the room this morning at our early service, as well as the many of you who are live streaming with us, we're glad to have you. Glad to have any visitors with us this morning as well. Welcome to you. So good to have everyone. And we begin, as always, by embracing all that you bring with you, your unique beliefs, your background, your lifestyle, your experiences, all that helps make you who you are. I forgot to put the unity candle out. Do you mind grabbing that? Thank you. Thank you, Lynn. For those who haven't heard, a longtime church member, Art Harlow, passed away peacefully at home on Thursday morning. After coping quite a long time with ill health. So, but Mary called me Thursday to let me know. So I wanted to pass it along to you and light our unity candle throughout our services this morning in honor of his light and life as always. I know we haven't been able to see Art in recent years as much as we were used to in previous years, but a truly wonderful man with a gentle heart and a generous hand, and he will be missed. Right, I also want to let you know, per our Social Justice Coordinating Council, that there is an opportunity coming up. Last month, the Spokane Alliance held a press conference at City Hall to support a new community workforce agreement. That's a pact that ensures that public funds will be invested in Spokane projects that will create quality jobs, support underrepresented communities, and invest in local workers. And you can help pass this progressive measure into law when the City Council is at least expected to vote on it on August 18th. So if turnout is important over the next few weeks, your social justice team will be selling UUCS t-shirts. Do you have one? Do you want to stand up and show it off? Very nice. So you can get those between services or after service for those who plan to attend, and that way we can have a show of force. So put it on your calendar, and I hope that you can be there. If you do have questions, you can contact Karen Dornsteele, who is here this morning, obviously, or Barb Stubing as well from our Social Justice Coordinating Council. So thank you so much. And another reminder that Jackie Sandberg, who is not here this morning, will be accompanying Madeline McNeil in our program of jazz and show tunes at Emery's Cocktail Bar in downtown Spokane on Wednesday, July 30th from 7 to 9 p.m. So if you haven't already put that on your calendar or are interested in attending, put it on your calendar. Let's see. By the way, Pam, now that I have your attention, thank you so much for, I don't know, Pam, I do have your attention. Hey, I was just talking about you. I just wanted to thank you for filling in for us today and with our.
These are hard shoes to fill.
They are hard shoes to fill, yes, for sure. Yeah, but the piano could use a break, actually, you know, from the burning fingers and the bouncing floor that Jackie usually plays on. So no, I love your style of music and always appreciate you. Yay! All right, so to conclude my opening comments, actually, so today I'm going to be talking about reading and why we should read, what to read and why. And in a book I cite in my sermon, I happened to find this note from years ago, from before I was the minister here. I used to have a bumper sticker on my car that said, "Born okay the first time." And so I had this note, and apparently I used it as a bookmark in this book that was on my car. It says, "No, you are not born okay the first time!" Exclamation mark. "Merry Christmas, God loves you. I challenge you to read the Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, especially John, and Acts and Romans, please." So this was somebody recommending some readings, which is what my sermon will be about today. It so happens I had read these, and they didn't do much good. So part of the lessons in reading is to choose wisely what we read, right? Be discerning, yes. So anyway, that was a great reminder today and fun to find. All right, we like to give a little doggy truth during our first service for the folks who come to the early service. And they're starting to pile up. People are finding dog truths. And I got one from Karen Dornsteele this morning that I'm going to share among a couple of others. But this is really a real dad joke here. So for those who are not fathers, please stick your fingers in your ears right now, okay? Okay. My dog has never in our life received a phone call. Why does my wife insist that he needs a caller ID? Okay. All right. Now, I had another one here I wanted to. Yeah, I don't know if I've done this one or not. I've tried to mark them off, but it's a good one. This one's kind of funny, and then I'm going to read a serious one. Okay. This is from Nora Ephron. I don't know who Nora Ephron is. Do you? You do? Who's Nora Ephron? She's an author. A novelist. Screenwriter? Okay, all right. Fiction, huh? That explains it. Okay. So, novelist, screenwriter Nora Ephron says, when your children are teenagers, it's important to have a dog so that someone in the house is happy to see you. All right, and this is just a generic one that is anonymous, and it says, a dog is a bond between strangers. Anybody who's ever taken their dog for a walk, which hopefully is most people who have a dog, will discover this is true. Okay, with that said, why don't we take a few minutes to greet one another, those of us who are here in the room and those who are live streaming. You're welcome to shoot somebody a text at this time if you'd like. All right, more opportunity is always to visit with one another following our service, but we'll move forward by lighting our chalice now. The chalice, as you hear me say each Sunday, is the symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need. And may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found.
Our opening reflection this morning is from my ChatGPT conversation with Reverend John Dietrich, who many of us recognize from Todd's teachings and sermons as the father of religious humanism. I asked Reverend Dietrich across time and space what I should read and why. Here is his response. You should read what awakens your mind, enlarges your sympathies, and strengthens your sense of responsibility to the human family. Read not merely for information or escape, though those have their place, but for formation of your conscience, your character, your courage. Read the great thinkers, not to memorize their conclusions, but to wrestle with their questions. Read the stories of those unlike you, so that your moral imagination grows more spacious. Read history, so that you may not repeat its errors. Read science, so that you may wonder, so that your wonder may be grounded in reality. Read poetry, so that your soul remains alive to beauty and meaning. Above all, read not just to retreat from the world, but to return to it, better prepared to serve. For humanism is not a spectator's philosophy, it is a life of action, and reading is one of its sacred tools.
Okay. Please stand and sing One More Step. One more step, we will take one more step, till there is peace for us, and everyone will take one more step. One more word, we will say one more word, till every word is heard by everyone. We'll say one more word. One more prayer, we will say one more prayer, till every prayer is shared by everyone. We'll say one more prayer. One more song, we will sing one more song, till every song is sung by everyone. We'll sing one more song.
And we'll now kindle our candles of care for those who are most on our hearts and minds this morning. And I want to begin, of course, with a candle on behalf of Mary Giannini and her family who are grieving the loss of Art. Also, as we have been, a candle on behalf of the people of Ukraine and the people of Russia who are suffering from the war and the violence there. A candle on behalf of the people of Israel and the Palestinian people, people in Iran, people in Syria who are suffering from that senseless conflict. For the many people, the frightened immigrants in our own country who are afraid to even breathe, I think, at this point, not knowing what's going to happen. And of course, for the people suffering from the climate change caused deadly floods in Texas at this time, as well as other consequences of climate change around the world. Let's take a moment of silence as usual on behalf of others you might be thinking of, and as always, you're welcome to name them aloud at this time if you'd like. Those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world at this hour, we hold in our community with compassion. And this is the third Sunday of the month when we usually take up a special collection on behalf of causes and organizations that are in alignment with our own values. And today's special collection is actually on behalf of our own little free pantry that I think some of you see when you're coming in the parking lot. Right outside the building there. It's modeled after the Free Little Libraries project and provides free food to anyone in need for 24 hours a day with no questions asked. It stays empty no matter how much we fill it up. And it is an incredible yet quiet expression of our Unitarian values, offering compassion and dignity to neighbors facing food insecurity. And one of the highlights of it is that each Sunday our children go out during the service, often laughing and playing together as they help restock that with some of the contributions that have been given or purchased through contributions as part of their own desire to create a more just and compassionate world. So if this ministry speaks to you, as always, if you want to use the special collection envelope that came in your order of service, we'd appreciate that, so we know that that's what it's for. If you're watching online, of course, you can always go on our website and give as well. So thank you so much for your generosity in advance. We now gratefully give and receive this morning's offering, which helps sustain this community and, of course, our mission to the larger world.
A wise woman spoke these words many years ago. Down we forget as up we grow. When children listen to what they need to know, speak on the side of love. Her voice, I do recall, was always sweet and low. Still sounds within my heart when rough winds blow. With trials and victory, there's one more way to go. darkness descends, there's no sacred ground.
Only one power can bring the morning round. Stand on the side of love.
Remember the brother you lost in a feud. Open your heart and let him through.
Hold the sister who challenges your soul. Heal on the side of love.
If Jesus and Moses and Muhammad were asked the question, what should we do?
I think they'd say, sitting here, right here with you, work on the side of love.
We gotta work on the side
Of love.
Lay a fire deep inside your soul tonight. Dream of the world at peace in that candlelight.
Let your troubles go like so many birds in flight, and live on and work on the side of love.
We gotta rise on the side
Of love.
Thank you. That was beautiful.
Oh, sure.
Well, today I want to tell you a story for our Time for All Ages about someone very special to me. She has soft ears, beautiful deep brown eyes, a wagging tail that when she's really happy or in a little bit of trouble moves her whole backside back and forth, and a very, very big heart. Her name is Lola, and she's my dog. Now, Lola can do a lot of things. She can catch a tennis ball in midair. She can find the exact spot on the couch with the most sunshine. She can, and trust me, she does, let me know exactly when the mail is being delivered. And she knows how to sit, stay, and roll over, especially if there's a treat involved. But there's one thing Lola really wishes she could do. Lola wishes she could read. How do I know this? Well, Lola watches me every day when I'm reading my book. Her ears perk up, her tail thumps once or twice. She'll stare at the pages, then at me, and then back at the pages. And if it's a story that makes me laugh or cry or gasp, she gets a look in her eyes like she's thinking, what's in there? What's making her feel all of that? I want to know too. Sometimes I read out loud to her. She likes that. But I can tell she's still thinking, if only I could read for myself, I'd find out all the good stuff. I'd read about squirrels and sandwiches and swimming and stories of brave and naughty dogs like me. But no matter how hard she tries, Lola can't read. Her paws are just not made for turning pages, and her brain is made for other things, like sniffing everything in the world, like figuring out how to get more treats than her brother Cyrus, and for alerting the entire neighborhood that there's a UPS truck on the block. But here's where it gets interesting. Lola can't read, but you can. And if someone can't read, but doesn't, they're really no better off than Lola. who wants to read but can't. There's this quote by a writer named Mark Twain. He said, "The man who does not read has no advantage over the man who cannot read." Or as Lola might say, what good is it to have a superpower if you never use it? You have the power to read, and when you use it, not just for school, but for fun or for exploring, for dreaming, you're doing something magical. You're going places Lola can only dream about. And the best part, when you read, when you really use that superpower, you're not just helping yourself. Every book you read, every idea you explore, every new word or wonder you discover adds to the person you're becoming across your whole lifespan. And people who grow through reading have more kindness to give, more courage to share, and more ideas to build a better world. So today and every day, for all of us, and especially for Lola, use your superpower and invest some of your time with your nose in a book. Read about faraway places, or clever kids, or silly jokes, or talking animals who can read. Read something that makes you laugh, or cry, or feel brave. Because reading is more than just a skill, it's a key, and it unlocks whole worlds that are waiting just for you. And if you ever wonder if it really matters, just picture Lola sitting beside you, tail wagging, eyes wide, thinking, if I could read, I'd never stop.
All right.
Still me. Okay, as we move into a time of meditation, you're invited to find a comfortable, receptive position. Close your eyes if you wish. Take a few deeper breaths and reflect on this quote from English writer Philip Pullman, who's best known for his fantasy trilogy, beginning with The Golden Compass. We don't need a list of rights and wrongs, tables of do's and don'ts. We need books, time, and silence. Thou shalt not is soon forgotten, but once upon a time lasts forever.
I want to sing to you about a memory I cherish very much. Having been able to go to Martin Luther King's March on Washington quite a long time ago. And I rode down there on there's a church that was mostly people that were brown or black skinned, and we all crowded into a bus and went down to Washington to honor Martin Luther King.
We were on the bus at midnight in 1963. Standing room only, rolling down to D.C. We shall overcome, we sang. This was the day we'd be marching with Martin Luther King. 200,000 souls were on the Capitol grounds. When Martin started speaking, there was no other sound. Till Mahalia Jackson cried out, "Martin, tell them about your dream." And Martin said, "Let freedom ring." Freedom is the cry understood by everyone. If you're blessed with freedom, your journey has begun. Every mighty river started at a spring, and Martin said, "Let freedom ring." Well, his sunlit path to justice ran into some rain. If you're brown in Arizona, the High Court did proclaim the law can question who you are and if you will remain. But Martin said, "Let freedom ring." He never said corruption pays, so hand me your gold. He never said children should bear a heavy load. He never said the law should stop brown folks on the road. Martin said, "Let freedom ring." I walked down to the river, to the green waterside. The water looked so turbulent, is peace on the other side? I'm grateful for the preacher and the wisdom he provides. Sled Martin said, "Let freedom." Lincoln said, "Let freedom." The people say, "Let freedom." So let freedom ring. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam, as always. You always amaze me. First of all, I love your style of playing. I mean, I don't know if you call it honky tonk or whatever, but I love that bouncy beat that you play with. And not only are you an incredible poet and songwriter, but you're such a historian. And to have these experiences and to be able to put them into song and convey them to us in a way that is so meaningful. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Can I add one little note?
One little note, yeah.
Well, the
Just
truth is-
speak really loud. Put the microphone right up to your mouth so
right
we
at
can
the
hear
mouth,
you.
the big mouth here. Okay, well, the truth is that I didn't hear Martin's speech because I fell asleep on the grass. We were all, I woke up when he was talking about the mountaintops of New Hampshire, which meant that I had missed the speech.
Wow.
but I sure was there.
Yeah. I'm thinking there were probably a lot of people who missed the speech because of grass,
It was so
but
hot.
maybe a little differently than you did.
But I love Martin Luther King. Who did?
All right, well, thank you. We're going to switch gears here to what to read and why, inspired by another person from history, my famous predecessor, John Dietrich. And in my continuing exploration of his writings, I came across his relatively brief 1922 essay entitled What to Read and Why. And as a reminder, Dietrich was the minister of our Spokane congregation from 1911 to 1916, and later became known as the father of religious humanism. This little leaflet, he begins, is for the purpose of suggesting a short course of reading which ought to be the foundation and framework of every intelligent person's thought. That's quite an undertaking. It's such a good idea that I immediately decided I'd give my own sermon on the topic. In 1922, in addition to conversation, lectures, and the radio, most people received information by reading magazines, newspapers, and whatever books they might be fortunate enough to get their hands on. Reading was an especially popular pastime because there weren't very many of them, right? But book availability was much more limited than it is today. Access to books was largely restricted to those living in or near major cities and to those with higher incomes, neither of which describes most people back then. Unlike today, right? Most people live in cities. Back then, it wasn't so. In the U.S. at the time, there were only around 4,000 retailers that even sold books, around 500 of which were actually bookstores. And there were far fewer public libraries. So given the difficulty of obtaining books, many people read whatever they could get their hands on. Still, given the investment of time and money, many would also have been eager to hear which book someone of Dietrich's stature would recommend. Today we have the opposite problem. Books are abundant. There are almost 70,000 brick and mortar bookstores in the U.S. alone, which doesn't include all those sold from online businesses or digital books. We also have a lot more information mediums with countless options available to us almost wherever and whenever we want, and often whether we want them or not. In addition to those ancient technologies like radio and television, our Alexas, computers, tablets, mobile phones expose us to far more websites, blogs, podcasts, streaming platforms, YouTube videos, ebooks, online magazines, and did I mention an ever-mounting pile of emails than we can possibly shake a proverbial stick at. Today we almost need advice on what not to read or otherwise waste our precious time on. So I hope that offering a few of my suggestions about reading can accomplish a little bit of both by enabling you to filter out some of the extraneous noise in our age of information overload. Like Dietrich, I'll focus on some examples of the kinds of writing that I consider essential for becoming good thinkers and good human beings. But first, I want to highlight a few of the introductory thoughts in Dietrich's little leaflet that are worth repeating. He begins by pointing out some of the reasons for reading. One must have a key to the drift and tendency of things before one can understand which way they are moving and what it is all about, he says. For this world is a world of growth. There is always a struggle going on between the lower and the higher, between the forces which try to arrest this growth and those which try to free it. As liberals, we ought to pursue knowledge that fosters both freedom and progress. And like professionals who must continually educate themselves about the changes and advancements in their fields to be expert human beings, we should continuously strive to recognize and understand changes in our world and do our best to adapt and to grow. And this means reading to keep up with new ideas, discoveries, science, technologies, current affairs, and so forth, and keeping an open mind about all of it. Great questions are always up for settlement, Dietrich says. Social, economic, political, moral, religious questions, and how shall the unthinking and unread know in which way lies the hope of mankind? By reading. Another of my ideological mentors, as you might imagine, social psychologist Erich Fromm, whom I know so much about only from reading, considers the urge to advance life, biophilus, orientation, our primary instinct. Most humans want to advance life. We're driven towards life-affirming behavior. Yet this primary instinct can easily be substituted by the death instinct, the necrophilius orientation. And when this happens, instead of fostering freedom and growth, we foster control and destruction. But as Socrates said, or so I have read, few of us knowingly do evil. Even when our behavior is destructive and against the forces of life, we are convinced that we are doing good and that we are pro-life. Dietrich says, thousands of people all the time and with the best possible intentions are consciously working against the best interest of humanity simply because they don't know better. Which is why we should read. Thoughtful people ought to read just as Pilate studies his chart, Dietrich says, that they may know which way to steer. That's what reading is ultimately about. Shaping our minds so that we can make more informed decisions. I said shaping, not filling. Not filling our minds, shaping our minds. Dietrich goes on to outline the areas that he considered crucial for us to understand, including the solar system, the earth and beginnings of life, the origins of humanity, the development of society, the growth of morality, and the development of religion, and a few topics of general interest. Each area is then accompanied by a few book recommendations, many of which may still be worth reading, but are also outdated. So I'm not going to mention any of those here. Instead, I'll begin with a major point about reading that I think is more crucial for us today than it was even during Dietrich's time in 1922. I suggest that you not only read, but that you read books. That you not only read, but that you read books, be they physical, audible, or digital, especially nonfiction books. Magazines, journals, and newspapers can also be reliable sources of information, but books especially stand out as provably trustworthy sources of information amidst the impossible amount of misinformation and disinformation coming at us from all those other mediums. And this isn't to say that many books aren't also complete garbage. But it's easy to pick up a book, quickly look at its author's reputation and credentials, the contents of its bibliography, and how well it's footnoted, and even dip into it a little bit before making a final decision of whether to read it or not. Books are the calm in the storm of information coming at us from all directions. A reasonably trustworthy book, meaning one that is well argued and well substantiated, enables us to feel more confident that what it says is worthy of our consideration. So, read books. There are many great nonfiction books, some of which are among the best social commentaries ever written, John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath and George Orwell's 1984 are among my favorites. But a lot of nonfiction books are just for entertainment. I like occasionally reading Star Trek novels. That's right, classic Star Trek, of course. But fiction is not rare. So much of what's being communicated today is fiction, including a lot of information being taken for truth. So if you prefer fictional escapes through reading rather than watching Netflix or Fox News, please continue to do so. But keep in mind that fiction abounds. Truth, on the other hand, remains a rare commodity that, like gold, takes some digging to discover. Nonfiction books are written by authors wishing to directly convey something that they believe is true. So if your purpose is to better understand how to navigate and promote life, knowing which way to steer, as Dietrich says, then read books that are nonfiction. Just watch out for the fool's gold. I should also mention some of the shortcomings associated with reading. I once read a book about speed reading, for example, explaining that we retain very little of what we read, less than 5%, which is about all I remember from that book. But reading isn't for the purpose of filling our heads with facts. It's about determining what we know, not about determining what we know, I should say, but shaping how we think. It's not what, but how we think. Reading slowly shapes our worldview so that we come to respond to life in certain and hopefully intelligent ways. Reading is a means of shaping your own neurology and developing instincts that will guide your decisions, whether you remember any stuff you've read from books or not. So choose what you read with wisdom and intention. As is often said about the internet, garbage in, garbage out. If the decisions we make don't usually work out for us, or if we are generally unhappy, it could have something to do with the information we've shaped our minds, our outlooks, our instincts with. But human neurology can reconfigure itself at any age, so it's never too late to pick up a worthwhile book and start changing our minds and our lives. So here's two other quick precautions about reading that you ought to keep in mind in your evolving mind. First, just because you read it in a book doesn't make it true. Second, just because you agree with a book doesn't make it true. Reading requires us to be good thinkers, so we can easily recognize if the information we're consuming is sound or not. The catch-22 is that becoming good thinkers requires us to read. So this leads to my first recommendation, that you should read about thinking. You should read to become a sound thinker. It's my first recommendation because thinking well is fundamental to validating the worth of everything else you read. Our society is extremely divided today because people haven't been taught to reason well. So we split into ideological tribes that are fearful of and hostile toward anyone with different ideas. But if we've learned to rely on reason for security in our uncertain world, rather than dogmatically clinging to our particular ideas about the world, we're not afraid of new ideas. We're not afraid of people with different ideas. If they are true, they can only benefit us. If they are false, they are no great threat because reason enables us to recognize them as such. Reason is, as Lynn said, a superpower. that makes us fearless in a world of misinformation and disinformation. You don't have to be afraid of things that are untrue, of being exposed to ideas that are untrue. To learn to think well, I recommend books on logic, as well as books on psychology and neurology. Logic teaches us about proper form and common fallacies. Logic, that is, teaches us not what, but how to think. Psychology and neurology, on the other hand, show how we are prone to think, making us more conscious of the irrational traps that our untrained, unexamined, unconscious, instinctive, and biased mind set for us. So I recommend you pick up a basic introduction to logic, preferably a college textbook, and slowly work your way through it and its exercises. My favorite is Irvin Copey's Introduction to Logic, but there's plenty of others. There are also some simpler books on logical fallacies, like Jamie White's Crimes Against Logic and Do You Think What You Think You Think by Julian Baggini and Jeremy Stangroom. So that's, again, Crimes Against Logic and Do You Think What You Think You Think. As for books on psychology and neurology, of course, there are many, but I recommend Robert Wright's excellent book, The Moral Animal, Why We Are the Way We Are, The New Science of Evolutionary Psychology. In short, Robert Wright's The Moral Animal. Evolutionary psychology, as it points out, is a relatively new field of psychology that I find very, very persuasive. Jonah Lehrer's also has an excellent book, How We Decide. This gets a lot into neurology in a really accessible way. I'd also throw in a book or two about emotional intelligence, especially Daniel Goleman's bestseller on the subject, Emotional Intelligence, Why It Can Matter More Than IQ. Right, because our emotional thinking gets in the way of sometimes rational thinking. Emotions are what make life worth living, far more than our thoughts. But they can also destroy us if we allow them to remain in the driver's seat. So you might also want to read something from philosophy about epistemology, that's the theory of knowledge, and metaphysics, the theory of reality. And by the way, go online and just read a good article on those. I actually don't recommend philosophy books as essential. But perhaps a philosopher's book about a specific idea could be transformative. But otherwise, all that listy kind of knowledge is available whenever you need it, right? So that's part of being a good thinker, knowing where the information is when you need it. Where was I? Yeah, I'm not going to give any more recommendations on these areas, but all of these fields of studies are really about questioning our own beliefs and the beliefs of others, right? Because we're being bombarded again with information. So just question what we assume is true and question what others tell us is true, which is precisely what makes us good thinkers, right? The instinct towards curiosity, towards wonder and doubt. That's the kind of brain we're wanting to develop. Dietrich's approach was to take the biggest subject, the origins of the universe, and then funnel inward, if you will, work inward into the origins of the earth, then life, then human society, then human beliefs, and so on. And while I agree that some of these subjects are important to read and learn about, I believe we must begin with learning to think well, so that we aren't easily deceived by others, and more importantly, so that we don't deceive ourselves. So next on my list is psychology. Understanding the human mind, emotions, drives, and needs is far more important than knowing cosmology or anything about science. Starting from that point. For if we are prone to instinctive and emotionally driven decisions and behaviors, then it doesn't matter what information we put into our heads, because none of it will make a meaningful difference in our lives. Right? If we're going to believe whatever we want or whatever we're driven to believe, then information is insignificant. We have to shape that brain first. We have to understand our own inner workings. So if you need some inner work, I then would recommend psychologist Carl Jung, or Jungian psychologist in general. Having read most of Jung's collected works, I recommend his dream analysis volume. Right? It's an extra volume that coincides with Bollagin's series, the Collected Works volume. And it is based on a seminar that he gave between 1928 and 1930. And what I like about it is this one volume contains much of his thoughts. It's more condensed. Of course, for Jung, it's about 6 inches thick, but still, it's better than the whole shelf of books that he's written. So I recommend that one. I usually turn to it if I want to find out what Jung said. I just go to its index and look up a subject that I know he's talked about in other volumes. So it's a really good condensation of Jungian theory. And I also recommend the writing of a Jungian psychologist, James Hillman. I think he passed away just a couple years ago. Especially his book, The Soul's Code. The Soul's Code, for a very unique insight about what makes us tick. I love everything that Hillman writes, but that I think is a must-read. Evolutionary psychology, again, is also a really important emerging field worth exploring, and I would again just recommend Robert Wright's The Moral Animal for that. Hopefully finding yourself by reading psychology, it will help accept yourself well enough to move on with life despite your hang-ups. Okay? That's the best thing about psychology, is just being comfortable with being screwed up like everybody else so that we can be functional, right? If so, I recommend you also begin reading social psychology, right? Moving away from ourselves into the world, to better understand the unconscious forces shaping human society and human behavior in general. And for this, as you may have guessed, I recommend anything written by Erich Fromm. But I'm often asked, what would you start with? And I always say, Escape from Freedom first, The Sane Society, and then Man for Himself, which is his book on ethics. And if you're open to something more scholastic and denser, but I think vitally important, I also recommend his 1973 book, which I just finished reading for the first time, The Anatomy of Human Destructiveness. It says a lot. Reading it will be a good launching point into the subject of ethics. And if Socrates was correct, that most of us want to be good people, we need only to understand what it means to be good, right? We're halfway there. We want to be good, so what does that mean? What does that look like? But few of us have ever studied ethics, right? This isn't something we're normally taught, or come to understand the difficulties in knowing the difference between right and wrong. It's not a black and white question. In practice, there are almost always negative consequences associated with any moral choice, which is why I often say every moral decision is accompanied by a moral dilemma. We have to weigh those consequences. So to begin with, I recommend books on moral development as the avenue to understanding ethics, right? Ethics is that next layer. Right, so we've come from reading about thinking well so we can process information well, to understanding ourselves so we know how to better act in the world, to actually ethics, which is the yardstick for figuring that piece of it out. So you see the train of thinking here. And it also, this moral development also is a blend of social psychology and individual psychology, so it helps on both fronts. And there are many books offering slightly different explanations of such developmental stages, but they are all almost always rooted or mirror in some way Lawrence Kohlberg's original theory. So I recommend his book, The Philosophy of Moral Development, or any reputable book on his theories. In fact, a good one to start with is the anthology Moral Development, Moral Education, and Kohlberg, edited by Brenda Muncie. Brenda Muncie. That's a good anthology of chapters written by different moral developmental thinkers based on Kohlberg's thought, obviously. Carol Gilligan's book, In a Different Voice, Psychology, Theory, and Women's Development, I think is also a key book in moral development. And then a lesser-known one is The Evolving Self by Harvard psychologist Robert Keegan, which also is a valuable read on this subject. So we kind of figure out, okay, you know, what makes us moral? We may be the only moral creature in the universe, certainly on Earth, right? We don't think there's any other creatures that sit around wondering what is the right thing for me to do here. Very strange thing for an animal to think this way. What's that like? How do we get there? And all of these books, among others, help us understand then the psychology behind human ethics, and that our best decisions ought to be based on universal principles that apply in most situations. That's really where these moral developmental strategies lead us to, rather than basing them on whatever circumstances we're in or what we're feeling in the moment, which sadly I think most people do. Right and wrong is what I'm feeling in the moment. Now, most books on pure ethics discuss various ethical approaches, but don't tell us which is best. So again, I don't recommend reading an entire book on the topic. You can go to an online encyclopedia or find some simple introductory articles easily online if you want to sort of look at the different types of ethical theories that you will then forget. Just remember where you got them, so if you do need them, you go look them up, right? Our librarians can appreciate that, right? The mind of the community is at the local library. So studying moral development in particular is what has helped me hone in my personal ethical beliefs over time, and I've changed a lot. I mean, I think before I studied ethics, I would be what you would call a deontological or rule-based ethicist, and then I became a teleologist, an ends-based ethicist, and now I'm a values-based ethicist as I've gotten older in life. And I'll leave it to you to figure out what the differences between those are, or learn about those if you don't already know. But it has all led me to really describe myself as someone whose ethics are rooted in the humanistic ethic, which you hear me say something about, I think, almost every Sunday now. Defined by Fromm as the belief that the sole criterion of ethical value must be human welfare, and that the unfolding and growth of every person should be the aim of all social and political activities. That's basically the principle that I don't have to quote or remember because it's become part of my moral attitude, my moral outlook, that no matter what situation I'm in, that's my priority. And that's what we're wanting to get at. Figure out what is it we want to integrate into us so that it just comes out naturally in our behavior. So at this point, having worked to become better thinkers, more aware of our unconscious biases and fallacies, how to understand the root causes of social dysfunction, and developed a working theory about how best to approach moral decision-making, we are finally in a position as more well-rounded individuals to understand our relationship with, and therefore our responsibility to, the world and others, including other living creatures and systems. So so now we've become ethical beings, right? You see? So now what do we do with that? Who are we responsible for? Having looked inward, we can begin to gaze at the stars, to wonder more about who we are and why we're here. So like Dietrich, I recommend studying cosmology, the origins of the universe. And for this, I have two recommendations. The universe story, from primordial flaring forth to the Ecozoic era, a celebration of the unfolding of the cosmos by cosmologist Brian Swimme and eco-theologian Thomas Berry. The universe story, in short. And to bring it then down to earth, read Microcosmos, the 4 billion years of evolution from our microbial ancestors by Lynn Margulis and Dorian Sagan. Yes, one of the sons of Carl Sagan. If you're interested in more on these subjects, please consult the bibliographies in these two books. I also recommend reading science in general, since I believe it offers the most truthful view of our reality and helps us remain honest with ourselves about the realities we face. And as long as it is quality science, which your reasoning powers should let you know, read whatever science catches your attention. My final category for becoming a well-rounded person is history. Not for the purpose of understanding the past, but for better understanding ourselves and knowing how we got where we are so that we can make sound decisions about the future. Because that's also part of being an ethical being, helping to create a better future for everyone. History is always about the future. And if you think about it, most of what I've recommended today is also about history. Psychology is but anthropology that digs into the mind's past, be it the individual or society. Ethics is largely about learning from our mistakes. Moral development is about building better ways of being upon the foundations of the past. Science examines natural history to discover new theories like evolution, for example. But no matter the field, it's always about what we can do in the present to make a better tomorrow for ourselves and others. By learning more about where we've been and where we're coming from, we better understand where we ought to go from here. I can't single out any history book that I would consider a must-read because, as I just said, almost all of it is history. Although I will recommend Yuval Harari's *Sapiens* if you've not read that, A Brief History of Humankind. The point here, again, is to read what you must to understand the past so that you can better move forward with life. So I'll close with just a few additional thoughts, additional books that I've personally found most transformative and important to me. And these are books that have changed me from a pessimist into an optimist for what I consider sound reasons. I think it's the pessimists who are naive, not the hopeful. They may not have the same impact on you, so I'm not going to call these must-reads, okay, for everyone. I just want to give you a little bit of my personal bibliography. A few of these recommendations are books that prove to me at least, the world is getting better in almost all respects, despite the dismal way it's portrayed in almost all other mediums. And they include The Rational Optimist by Matt Ridley, Factfulness by statistician Hans Rosling, and The Better Angels of Our Nature by Steven Pinker, whose more recent book, Enlightenment Now, I also recommend. The three books that I love most of all are Ray Kurzweil's The Singularity is Near and The Singularity is Nearer, and Abundance, The Future is Better Than You Think by Peter Diamandis and Stephen Kotler. these books have given me reason to have hope, and hope without reason is just wishful thinking. Morihei Ueshiba, the founder of Aikido, the way of harmony, once said that life is growth. If we stop growing, technically and spiritually, we are as good as dead. Erich Fromm said similarly, we grow either stronger or weaker, wiser or more foolish, more courageous or more cowardly. Every second is a moment of decision, for better or for worse. The moment we stand still, we begin to decay. Reading is about moving and growing, which are the very definitions of life. So read. Read books. Read nonfiction books about things you never knew about nor thought you'd ever want to know about, written by people you don't know nor ever thought you'd want to know. Read books that agree with you, but also some authors that you disagree with. Reading things you dislike or disagree with won't kill you, but not reading will. So read. For as one of my graduate professors, Professor Joseph Martos used to say, diplomas cost money, education is free. Thank you. Thank you. I think, we'll just go right into our closing benediction and then our closing song. Is that okay? Thank you. I talked too long about reading.
Just the benediction. So as we close, I invite you to be a reader and to nurture and support the reading of others. Our benediction today is the last stanza of one of my favorite poems, The Reading Mother by Strickland Gilliland. You may have tangible wealth untold, caskets of jewels and coffers of gold. Richer than I, you can never be. I had a mother who read to me. Amen. Blessed be. Salam alaikum and shalom.
Shalom.
Luba. Hi. So good to see you.
Decided to substitute.
Yeah. Well, he took off from Jackie. Jackie's sister.
Yeah, because, well, he's very busy.
Yeah. I would think he would be, because he's very talented. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
The microphone was very
Oh, and I didn't pull it up enough.
yes.
And I was afraid because at the beginning of the morning, my hearing aids and this did not agree. And there was a squealing
Squeaky
noise.
sound.
And so I kind of forgot about that. I left one hearing aid in, and I thought that was my balance. But you couldn't really hear that.
And then we sitting there, I wouldn't be able to,
Yeah.
because your voice was so soft. And then she realized that the microphone was
Well, that's a good lesson for the next service. I'll keep it. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Move it slowly. Is that what you said?
move it close.
Oh, closer. Yeah.
Closer,
Yeah.
he said. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you.
Oh, you are welcome.